All right, this is the second half of this chapter looking at sleep-wake disorders. Now, as we generally can get a good handle on, sleep is a normal biological function, but how do we do it? And why do we do it? Sleep is restorative, and we seem to need it. Just try not sleeping for a week. See how that goes for you. Now, most of us get tired at night, go to bed, and we can fall asleep. No problem. However, some cannot get to sleep or cannot stay asleep, and they have problems with this. Now, it's affecting their everyday lives because of this. It affects work, it affects interpersonal relationships, the social environment, it affects all aspects of their life. Now, by the DSM-5 categories, this is known as sleep-wake disorders. It's a diagnostic category representing persistent and recurrent sleep-related problems. And that's important. I've mentioned this before, that in all of these categories, it's about persistence of the issue and the recurrence of it. It keeps on happening. And it causes significant personal distress and impaired functioning. So it's important that with all of the conditions, of course, that we keep in mind that they are persistent and recurrent, and it has a profound impact, a significant impact on our personal lives, and it causes us distress. It stops us from going to work, for example. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to review the basic categories in sleep-wake disorders, and they come in two basic categories: dysomnia and paradysomnia. And so in this chapter we'll look at the types, we'll look at the theories behind it, and the treatment regarding them. Alrighty then, let's carry on. We're almost at the end. Carry on, keep up the good work. Alright, the first category we're going to look at is dysomnia. And dysomnia is a category of sleep-wake disorder that involves disturbances in the amount or the quality or the timing of sleep. Timing just meaning when you sleep. And so what we're going to begin with is insomnia disorder. And this is where having an occasional bouts of, not sleeping or not very long or not sleeping very well. This is considered relatively normal to have this occur occasionally. However, with insomnia, this is where someone is sleeping a lot less to much less than what is considered average. And average is considered around 7 to 7.5 hours. So if you're in the 6.5 or less hours per sleep, you could be in this category. Now, things like stress, shift work, heavy drinking or cannabis use or obesity, these can all be factors, and there are many other factors which can influence your sleeping patterns in the night. Now, the more chronic example of insomnia is, as you would expect, chronic insomnia. And this is lasting at least a month, having difficulty either falling asleep, remaining asleep, or getting a restorative sleep for a period of a month or more. Now, as an alternative, there is what's known as hypersomnia. Now, hypersomnia is sleeping or excessive sleep during the day. Again, continuing far at least a month or longer. It isn't something that happens occasionally. From time to time, it's something that happens much more regularly. Remember, recurrent, persistent, and causes disturbance in our personal lives. Now, this can include difficulty waking up, unintended napping, and not waking refreshed. This may sound normal, but remember, it causes difficulty in one's life and missing meetings and such as that. Now, there is another form of sleep disorder called narcolepsy, and you may have heard of this before, and it's much more difficult than you might imagine. Narcolepsy essentially is having a sleep attack. Without warning, a person will just drop to sleep directly into REM sleep. And REM means rapid eye movement, and it's the third and fourth stage, or the fourth stage of sleep, and it's the deepest sleep. It's where dreaming typically will start to happen. And this sleep that this person drops into will last 10 to 15 minutes. They need to have the experience for at least 3 months and meet the conditions listed on page 305 under narcolepsy to meet the criteria. Now this can be quite debilitating. I did have a student in my class when I was teaching in class who had narcolepsy, and 2 or 3 times in class she would drop off. In fact, she brought a friend with her to basically keep an eye on her so that when she did drop off, she would protect her head from slamming on the desk and hurting herself. In addition to narcolepsy, breathing-related sleep disorders is another category. And this is where a repeated disruption of sleep due to respiratory problems can result in insomnia or excessive daytime sleepiness. It can sleep apnea is a primary form in this category. It's the most common form of breathing-related sleep disorders. This is where breathing problems are result from an airflow blockage due to structural defects in the upper airway. Breathing can stop for 15 to 90 seconds at a time, 30 times a night, 30 times in an hour, so quite frequently. And you can imagine this can result in a distress to the sufferer or to their sleeping partner because they're constantly appearing like they've stopped breathing, and it can be quite a startle. And of course, this won't certainly be of any benefit to your restorative sleep. Okay, now the next one we're going to move into, because all these sleep disorders have a common foundation, if you will, and it's our circadian rhythm. The next sleep disorder is called circadian rhythm sleep disorder. The circadian rhythm is an internal bodily cycle that essentially guides our body through the 24-hour day, and it includes body temperature changes from morning to night, hormone adjustments, bodily functions, and with this disorder, the rhythm becomes very disrupted. The sleep-wake cycle becomes disrupted. It's persistent. It's severe enough to disrupt and impair normal functioning, socially, occupationally, and in a variety of situations. Now, if you look at the circadian rhythm, noon is at the top, midnight is at the bottom, and it's a 24-hour clock. And so if you look around the 1800 and onward, when we're getting in towards sleep time, the body starts to prepare. Our highest blood pressure is there, our highest body temperature is then, the melatonin secretion starts, and the bowel movements are suppressed. Through the evening, it's our deepest sleep, we have our lowest body temperature, and we start to have a rise as the morning comes around, and blood pressure, melatonin secretion stops now, bowel movements are more likely, higher testosterone secretions begin, and highest alertness starts to happen in the morning. And the best conditions are in the afternoon, fastest reaction time, cardiovascular efficiency, and muscle strength. So you see there's a bit of a rhythm on the 24-hour clock. Now certainly shift work can affect this, missing sleep can certainly affect this, and so the circadian rhythm sleep disorder is about this 24-hour clock being disrupted. Now, parasomnias, if we move into this category, these involve abnormal behaviors during sleep. So it's not just about getting to sleep or having a restorative sleep. It's about the behaviors that might occur while you're asleep. The more common ones are the following. When we look at nightmare disorder, we're looking at the reoccurring wakening due to frightening dreams, nightmares. Nightmares typically will occur in REM sleep when we have our dream stage. And this stage of sleep usually involves the type of paralysis. So in REM sleep, although we're dreaming, we do go through a fairly, our bodies are paralyzed. They don't move a great deal while we dream. Although it may appear that we do given the kinds of dreams, which is kind of handy because if you weren't paralyzed and you had these nightmares, you'd probably want to jump out of bed and run away, which could prove dangerous because you'd be asleep and you'd probably run into the wall. Now, one type of disorder that strikes children more than adults is what's known as sleep terror disorder, and you'll recognize this in someone as they are sleeping. They'll just yell out in a piercing scream, and it's often, like I said, in children than it is in adults. They'll often sit up quite quickly and be sweating, disoriented, may not even recognize you as a parent, but they're still asleep. And after a while, the child will fall back to sleep and remember nothing about that experience in the morning. Sleep terror disorder involves repeated episodes. Children will typically grow out of them, although there is a small percentage of adults that will continue to have them. Now, sleepwalking disorder is what you would expect, people walking while asleep. Repeated episodes of someone getting up and walking around while remaining completely asleep. This occurs during deep sleep stages. They tend to have a blank stare and don't usually bump into things. Accidents can happen, of course. And just as a precautionary note, or a sort of a let's get past this notion of how we've understood that when you awaken a sleepwalker, they will not be harmed by waking them. That's a fallacy. They may be somewhat disoriented, but they'll be fine. When we think in terms of treatment for sleep-wake disorders, the most common solution has been medications, anti-anxiety drugs, such as sedatives and anesthetics. They're not the best to rely on because there's been some problems, but the following are approaches that have been used. The biological approaches, minor tranquilizers called benzodiazepines, like Restall, Halcion, also to a lesser extent the use of barbiturates like Seconal. When they're used for the short term, they can demonstrate more success. They can develop dependence, and that, of course, is not healthy. This is both physical and psychological dependence. Cognitive behavior strategies have been used to some pretty good extent, and what you're seeing here is a stimulus control therapy as an example to give you an idea on what they would look like. The focus is on lowering states of physiological arousal. So modifying maladaptive sleeping habits, changing dysfunctional thoughts, using relaxation techniques, stimulus control, and anxiety management. So instead of going to bed at a particular time, you go to bed when you're sleepy. You don't watch television, read, eat, or worry while you're in bed. You use bed only for sleep and or sex. So that gives you an idea that you're changing the circumstances by which sleep gets set up for. That's the stimulus control. Also is some strategies being used are relaxation techniques. Getting ready and getting prepared for bed in a relaxed manner will bring and slow down the body's reactions and prepare for sleep better. Now, cognitive restructuring is another strategy that's used. The substituting of self-defeating and maladaptive thoughts with more rational thoughts. Now, you'll see on page 331 on the box it's called A Closer Look, and you'll see an example of what restructuring might look like. That's where we're going to end it today. I hope it's been going well, and keep up the good work, everybody.